Hello, everyone. My name is Brendan Marr. That noise you're hearing is my ventilator. And welcome to Page Turners They Were Not, my Star Wars podcast. All right, everyone, this is it. This is my spoiler review of The Rise of Skywalker. Now, I had to see the movie again before I could do this review. And I was ill last week, so I was not able to go and see the movie. So that's why this review might be coming a bit late. But now that I've seen it twice, it's time to talk about it. Now, I'm going to first review the film using a technique that I borrowed, oddly enough, from the great philosopher Aristotle. Yes, you heard that right, Aristotle. When he was discussing how to review Greek drama, Greek theater, he created a list of 6 things to look at in any production. I've taken that list and modified it for my own purpose. Now, number 1 is plot, and number 6 is spectacle. The order of the others, as put forward by Aristotle, I don't remember. But I do know the order of mine. And the reason I mention plot and spectacle is because plot, in Aristotle's mind, is the number 1 most important thing. A good plot. And the least important thing is good spectacle. I think I agree. You can have good spectacle, but if the rest of the movie stinks, then so much for that. So, it's important to have the priorities straight. And I'll just say, I think this movie has its priorities straight. Spectacle only serves in service to the story. Okay, so let's begin. Number 1, plot. Well, the main plot of The Rise of Skywalker is fairly straightforward. Rey and company must find the wayfinder that leads to Exegol. Using Luke's notes, they travel to Pasana, a desert world under the control of the First Order. There they find the dagger. They have to go to Kijimi to modify 3PO's memory so that he can read it. He reads it, and they get the coordinates to a moon in the Endor system, where Rey finds the wayfinder. Kylo Ren, of course, destroys it, but Rey takes his ship, uses that wayfinder, and finds her way to Exegol. So yes, it's not super straightforward, but at least the basic idea, Rey must find the wayfinder, I think makes sense. And I think that overall, the main storyline, which is kind of an adventure, kind of an Indiana Jones style adventure, I think it's quite good. Now, a lot of the other stuff I enjoy very, very much, but it's ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous, some of the things in this movie. And that's not a bad thing. If it bothers you, fine. But I think there's just so much wackiness. And I think, as Ken Napzok says at Force Center, over at Force Center, he says that this movie is bonkers. And I think I agree. You get this, like, fleet of Star Destroyers, all armed with planet-destroying weapons that are raised up out of the ocean by Palpatine. You get, Snoke floating in a vat. You get characters like Claude, the big snail guy. You've got a stormtrooper with a jetpack that goes crashing into a canyon wall like Wile E. Coyote. You get Palpatine's chanting like audience. It's completely nuts. It's completely nuts. But I love it. How the rebels get a fleet that big, I don't know. Lando was persuasive. I don't know. So a lot of the sort of the side plot stuff is ridiculous. And there are some plot conveniences that don't bother me, but they are awfully convenient. Like, they find the dagger in the cave under those sinking fields. Though that I don't think is overly convenient. Ochi had the dagger. Ochi's the guy who killed her parents. He had the dagger. Now, why in the world a dagger is inscribed to the coordinates of the Wayfinder, which is on a chunk of the Death Star? But the coordinates carved in the dagger are where the wreckage is sitting. Why in the world you would write it on a dagger is beyond me. Why it's not in some database or something. That does not make a lot of sense, but you know what? It's awesome. It's awesome. It's like Indiana Jones. It's this ancient dagger. Even though it's not ancient. It's written in the ancient language of the Sith. But why in the world Ochi would write down, oh yeah, well, I don't know, maybe Ochi had a bad memory in it so he could remember. Or something ridiculous like that. So, regardless, the movie has some conveniences. It is very convenient that they just so happen to be, when they're on the moon in the Endor system, which I don't remember the name of it. They never say it in the movie. I think it's called Kef Bir. But I always assumed it was just, the forest moon of Endor from Return of the Jedi. They just so happen to be standing in just the right place to use that protractor in the dagger to find out where the Wayfinder is. Okay, that's ridiculously convenient. And of course, there's your typical death fake-outs. Like, oh no, Chewie's dead. Oh no, he's not. Whatever. But I do like the idea that Rey thought she had killed him. That I think gave her that sense of guilt. Now, if she had accidentally killed Chewie, I know a lot of us would have been terribly upset at the death of Chewie. But that certainly would have been very impactful on Rey. where it turns out she actually did kill him. Um, you know, Zori just so happens to have a medallion that could get them onto the Star Destroyer, So I'm not going to go too deep into it because I've gone off target. So the main plot, I think, makes sense. It's this linear adventure. Okay. A lot of the other stuff, like the ridiculousness of some of the plot, or some of the plot elements, I should say, some of the conveniences, yes, okay, those are all ridiculous. But I'm going to say it again. It didn't bother me at all. Star Wars has always been kind of ridiculous. So I was totally fine. And also, plot conveniences, a lot of the Star Wars movies thrive on plot conveniences. So I'm not going to be too critical of that in this movie when the whole saga's been guilty of it. So regardless, it didn't bother you, fine, but that stuff was minor for me. So the plot, I think the main plot makes sense. Some of the side plot elements are a little ridiculous. Not necessarily in a bad way, but in a convoluted way. Okay, so we got that. Now the characters. This is the number 2 point on my list. How are the characters? Great, in my mind. Even the new characters. I love Zori. I love Janna. I really find that they appeared, and despite their limited screen time, they made an impact. And they stayed with me, and I loved them because I felt that they fit in, and I liked the chemistry they had with the other characters. Also, lest we forget, General Pride. Allegiance General Pride is a great character. I love that Richard E. Grant looks so perfect as a lugubrious Imperial officer. Or First Order officer. Though, of course, he serves a higher master. I really like his character, how kind of snide he is. If that's a word. And he just has that right face. And may I just say, Richard E. Grant has beautiful eyes. Yes, he really does. Speaking of beautiful eyes, Zori has great, beautiful eyes. I'm just going to say that Kerry Russell has beautiful eyes. And I also thought Janna, the Naomi Aki, the actress, I think she's very beautiful. So. But besides that, I like that these characters fit right in. They didn't feel shoehorned. It's like, oh, well, we got to stuff in a few more characters. No, they felt organic to the story. Lando's return is wonderful. Because Billy D. Williams has lost none of the charm. He is still as charming. He still has the swagger. He still has that debonair smile. That smile that makes the lady swoon. Yeah, bringing back Lando was a great choice. And they used it well in the plot, and in many ways, you could say he saved the day. Because he's the one who rounded up that fleet. Apparently, he's very persuasive. Though, arguably, the reason nobody came to Crate in The Last Jedi was because they felt there was no hope. This time around, apparently, there was a spark of hope that got people to join in. Lando was able to round up a big fleet in quite a hurry. Is that a little convenient? Yes, but as I said, let's not get into the conveniences of the Star Wars saga, or we'll be here all day. We'll be doing a podcast for a week if we had to do that. So those are great. Great to have new characters, great to have returning characters. Our main characters, I don't think I've seen them do better. Necessarily. I think that the chemistry between Finn and Rey was strongest in The Force Awakens. But the chemistry between the three of them has never been stronger because, of course, number one, they haven't been on screen together yet as a trio. And number two, the way that the characters were used, Poe and Finn, was, I think, better than the way they were used in The Last Jedi. And so it's nice to get to see all three characters really getting a lot to do, getting to interact with each other, seeing the wonderful chemistry between these three actors. And also, C-3PO is probably the best his character has been in a long time. Probably the best he's been on screen since The Empire Strikes Back, I think. Excellent. And I like that Anthony Daniels really got to shine, no pun intended, in this movie. The only character that I felt was a little bit shoehorned in was Maz. Now, we knew that Maz Kanata would be in this film. Now, the only thing, maybe shoehorned is the wrong word, but I felt that she was kind of there. She said a few wise things, mostly to R2-D2 or Chewie, but she didn't really contribute that much to the story, I think. Though maybe you could argue that if she is some kind of witness to events, like maybe someday she'll write a journal about what she experienced. And she was there when Leia passed away. She knew that Leia had to reach out to Ben, and it would take all of her strength. Rey, or Maz, I should say, is an observer. And I think if you look at it that way, her presence makes sense, but she doesn't do a lot in terms of being active in the story. But I am glad she's there, because I love Maz. I love Maz, and I love Lupita Nyong'o. Now, Rose. Okay. This is the one where I am a little disappointed. Rose felt like she was sidelined in this movie. I do not know the reasons. I've heard various reports whether true or not, I've heard reports that she was in more scenes with Leia, but the scenes did not look good and had to be cut out. And I understand that given what they were trying with Leia. We'll get to her in a minute. Now, I am glad that Rose was there in the final battle. I am glad that her little bit of her expertise was used in terms of figuring out how to destroy the Star Destroyers. So she was used in a decent way. But I do think that she not deserved, but that given how prominent she was in The Last Jedi, I think I expected to see her in just as prominent a role. But I think that what was happening was the main trio, Poe, Finn, and Rey, were the real protagonists of this story, of this episode. And it's their story. That is unfortunate for Rose, but if it is true that she was in more scenes, but scenes that did not work given the technology with Leia, then I understand. Though admittedly, I think that they could have used those scenes, but written it in a way that it's Rey interacting with other characters and actors that are there instead of interacting with some movie wizardry, so that her scenes would have been in the movie. But nonetheless, I don't think you make a movie and build it around just one character. So I don't necessarily believe that they should have set out to be like, well, we got to make sure Rose has a bigger role. You got to do what works. And unfortunately, it meant that Rose had to be kind of trimmed out. Now, I do not believe for a second they did this deliberately because of the backlash from toxic fans. I like Rose, and I would have liked to see more of her. But nonetheless, she was used in the story, and I'm glad that she was. Though I do think it's strange that they never addressed the fact that she kissed Finn, but whatever. Whatever. But yet again, I'm being selfish. I would have liked more Rose. Let's talk about our Ben Solo. Ben, very well used. I love that. Despite his limited dialogue, Adam Driver really delivers in this episode. Now, he has been one of the best things about this new trilogy. And I was very pleased by his role in this film. The idea that he was... I think I picked up on this yesterday when I saw the movie again. Almost from the get-go, Kylo's like, I'm going to turn the tables on the Emperor. Palpatine has offered Kylo this great power. But it would seem, based on Kylo's conversation with Rey, that Kylo was thinking, no, I'm not going to side with Palpy. I'm going to turn the tables on Palpy. I'm going to get ready to join me, and we're going to defeat him. And we're going to rule the galaxy together as a Sith couple. Now, obviously, that doesn't go the way Kylo plans it. I love that, Kylo is conflicted, as always, and seems to be hunting down Rey. Well, he says he wants to turn her to the dark side, which might be true, but I think it's also, if I can be a bit of a Reylo for a minute, I think it's the love he feels for her. I really think it's there. Now, you don't have to interpret it that way, and that's fine. Because I know plenty of people who don't interpret it romantically. So whether you take it romantically or not, Kylo, having discovered that they are a dyad in the Force, wants Rey on his team. Now, I like the dyad, and we'll get to that in a minute. And this episode of the podcast, I warn you, might be really long. Because, this is a big spoiler review. So, you could say it's either romantic, or the dyad, or both. But because of their Force dyad, and that their strengths complement each other, and together they are super powerful, Kylo wants Rey on his team. Now, he says he wants to turn her to the dark side. But we know how conflicted dear old Kylo is. Now, I do believe the scene when he touches Vader's mask. He opens up that container and he touches the mask. I'm not sure what he's doing there, but I think he's drawing the dark side from that helmet. And Palpatine implied at the beginning of the movie that he's been talking to Kylo through the mask. Now, he doesn't say that, so that's what I take it. That's how I take it. So maybe Kylo is, in an effort to be bad, draws dark side energy from the helmet, which is energy that probably comes from Palpatine. But I'm just guessing. I don't really know. But he's conflicted, and we know this. Now, I love the scene. Love it, love it, love it. Where Kylo decides enough is enough, and that he's going to reject Kylo Ren and become Ben Solo again. And who should help him on this journey but his own father, or his memory of his father? Now, I have a theory. So Leia reaches out through the Force to Ben during his fight with Rey. As Maz points out, in order to reach Kylo, Leia will have to use all the strength she has left. Which brings her death. I think she does a variant of what Luke did when he used the Force projection from Octo to Crate. Leia does something similar. She does not physically appear, but reaching out across that distance to distract Ben. Well, number one, it distracts him, so Rey stabs him. With his own blade, ironically. We'll get to that in a minute. But not just, like, distracts him. But I think we understand, or I understand, that Ben's connection with his mother is stronger than his connection with anybody. And I think that he senses that love that she has for him. And that gives him pause. There are many ways you can interpret it. But also, maybe Leia giving up her life to reach him. He senses that fatal choice. And emotionally, he can't handle that. Because I think he loves his mother more than anybody. But nonetheless, he is distracted. Rey stabs him with his own lightsaber. Metaphorically, Kylo Ren dies at his own hand. His own weapon destroys him. The idea that Kylo Ren is represented by his saber. That saber kills him. And kills Kylo Ren. So that is the death of Kylo. Kylo Ren is a persona. Not really who he is. And I like that it's his own blade that does it. Now, that being said, the lightsabers in this movie, I think, represent a lot. And we'll get to that in just a minute. So, we got that. Then we come to the character of Leia. Oh crud. You know what? Let me back up. We need to complete the death of Kylo Ren here. I think Leia, in giving up her life, also through the Force, stirred up memories of Han Solo. Because I think Leia knew, going back to The Force Awakens, when she says to Han, you know, you're his father. Leia knew that Ben needed closure with Han. He needed that closure. Do you notice the scene of Ben with Han is a replay, in many ways, of the bridge scene in The Force Awakens when Kylo killed his father. When he was still Kylo. This scene with the memory of Han in The Rise of Skywalker is Ben thinking, I think, about what would have happened if things had gone differently in the scene on the bridge. If in that moment he had chosen to throw his lightsaber down the shaft and turn away from the persona of Kylo Ren. Obviously, he did not make that choice. But I love the scene of him with Han imagining what would have happened if he had made the right choice in that moment. Brief moment, but Harrison Ford delivers as Han in a truly emotional scene. Kylo, or Ben, I should say, calls him Dad. Melts your heart, I swear. And of course, Han responds, because Ben doesn't say it. Han says, I know. In typical Han fashion, he knows that Ben loves him. And in that moment, Ben casts off Kylo Ren forever. Now, when Rey stabbed him, I think also that moment of compassion that Rey had for Kylo Ren healing him also caused Kylo, or should I say Ben, I keep calling him Kylo Ren, I mean to call him Ben, gives Ben pause and realizes that compassion, love, is so much better than the dark side. Also foreshadows the future of when Ben heals Rey. Now, Leia. Now we talk about Leia. Well, there were a couple of moments where I was not pleased with the use of Leia. As you could really tell, they're trying to shoehorn it in. Shoehorn the limited footage they had. There are other moments, though, where I went, okay, that's good. And the way that Leia is used in the story, I very much enjoy. Giving up her life to save men, becoming one with the Force, Leia being raised Jedi Master. I love that. I love that. And also getting a little bit more backstory of Leia training with Luke. And Leia's lightsaber. Great, great stuff. It also recontextualizes Leia's floating through space in The Last Jedi, where we realize that she did have training. So it gives us a little bit more of a, or it gives me at least, more of a sense of, oh, that explains why she could do that. So, I like that. Good stuff. Now, Palpatine. Oh, boy. Let's talk about Papa Palpy. Well, he died because he said so. So I assume it meant his spirit separated from his body when he was thrown down the shaft. Now, whether that body that he's in The Rise of Skywalker, is a clone body or not, I don't know. Let's assume that it is his same body from Return of the Jedi. So I assume that his spirit had to re-enter his body. We don't know how long that took. And obviously some guys from the Sith Eternal cult had to come and collect his body. If you consider that this story Takes place 31 years after Endor, after Return of the Jedi, after Palpatine's death. I would hate to see what his body looked like when they recovered it. Now, it's my theory that the Snokes in the cloning chamber, or not cloning chamber, but they were like floating in a vat. I believe Palpatine used one of them to be his puppet leader of the First Order. And the others, I'm thinking he drained them as soon as they were birthed, so to speak. He would probably suck their power out just to stay alive. Suck their energy that basically kills them, but keeps him alive. If you want to say that he's alive, because he's all hooked up to a life support machine. So, I think that he is sucking their energy. Now, I don't think Snoke had any idea that he was being duped. He was Palpatine's stooge, I think, is what he didn't realize in the previous two movies. Because he seemed to think he was all a big deal. Or it's possible that he was going to try to turn the tables on Palpatine and say, no, I'm the guy who's awesome. Regardless, he was sort of the stooge leader of the First Order. So I think the ones that we see in those jars are ones that Palpatine would birth and then suck their energy, killing them but preserving his life. But like I said, maybe that's a clone body he's in. And maybe it keeps deteriorating, so every couple of years he has to enter a new one. Or something like that. I don't really know. Could it have used more explanation? Yes, but you might have gotten bogged down in too much exposition. Let me show you my PowerPoint presentation. It is your destiny. Really bad impression. So I think that would have gotten a little bit too deep into that. But I like that he's back. It ties it all together. I like that he is... I think what he realizes is, I've been feeding off these crappy clones of Snoke. Well, once he sucks a little bit of energy from Kylo and Rey's dyad, then he's like, ooh. Then he finally can come off the life support. Then he finally can do the crazy lightning. I think he realized that, ooh, this I like. Now, I think he knew about their bond. The bond that Snoke claimed to have created. Which I don't actually believe he did. Palpatine knew about that. But he and Snoke didn't realize it was deeper than that. It was a dyad. Which Palpatine said had not happened in generations. Now, somehow Kylo had figured it out. Now, either Palpatine told him, or he figured it out for himself. I think Palpatine's like, ooh, okay, this I like. But it really, there's so much I could say about their dyad. I think they draw energy in the Force from each other. Maybe that explains why Rey, after the interrogation scene in The Force Awakens, can almost immediately pick up on using the Force. I think because Kylo passed some of it to her. And they were doing it because of their dyad. In fact, the scene where they invade each other's minds in The Force Awakens may be the scene, or the moment, I should say. The moment where the dyad springs into full bloom. So there's a lot of theories there. There's so much we could say about their dyad, but I love it. It explains a lot of the stuff in The Last Jedi. It explains some of the stuff in The Force Awakens. I love that they can pass objects between each other, which started out small in The Last Jedi, when Kylo had water dripping from his glove after speaking to Rey through the Force during a rainstorm on October. Brilliant bit of taking what had been established and increasing it, and it just gets bigger and bigger. And I love that it foreshadowed, with Kylo grabbing the necklace and those things spilling on the ground, it foreshadowed when Rey was able to pass Luke's lightsaber to Kylo. Which is interesting because, if you recall in The Force Awakens, he said, that lightsaber belongs to me. In a way it does, and he got it. After he shows up to help Rey. Now, speaking of Rey, and I know we're getting a little long-winded here, we need to talk about the Palpatine lineage. Now, a lot of fans, including myself, liked the idea that Rey was a nobody. But what does it mean to be a nobody, or no one? But we'll get into that in a minute. So when it was revealed that she was a Palpatine, a good number of fans went, why does she have to be related to somebody? Why couldn't she just be Rey from nowhere? Well, let me give you my interpretation. Rey is not powerful because of Palpatine. But Kylo says, you have his power. As far as I am concerned, the only time that strength in the Force has been a result of bloodline is with the Skywalker family. Now, as Joseph Scripture pointed out on his latest episode of Star Wars Counseling, which I cannot recommend enough, he pointed out you still have to make the choice to learn about the Force. Leia did. Now we know that she had some innate power. Now, as we know, Luke said in Return of the Jedi, the Force is strong in my family. I have it. My father has it. My sister has it. Yada yada. But that's the only time that bloodline has played a role in it, I think. So I do not believe that Rey is powerful because of Palpatine. Because it doesn't look like, and maybe I'm wrong, that Rey's dad was Force sensitive. If he was, he probably could have used the Force to stop Ochi from killing him. Now, I think Rey is powerful in the Force because she is. Naturally, she is. And the dyad with Kylo only strengthened that. Rey's innate strength in the Force exploded into full bloom, I think, with the dyad with Kylo, which I believe was more or less activated when they read each other's minds in The Force Awakens. But Rey's innate strength was there. We know from the escape from Jakku on the Millennium Falcon that Rey says she didn't know how she had done that. She didn't know how she was able to fly like that, or how she was capable of doing it. But I think her preternatural strength in the Force helped her in that moment. And it only got bigger as she trained, as she connected with Kylo. That's her strength. Not Palpatine being her grandfather. Now, in terms of does that violate the idea that Rey is a nobody? Well, let me put it this way. If my grandfather was Steve Jobs, which, to be clear, he's not, does that make me somebody just because of who my grandfather is? It's about who we choose to be. Rey's parents chose to be no one. Rey chose to learn about the Force. Just as Luke did. Just as Leia did. Just as Ben did, I'm sure. It's our choices who define us, not our lineage. Now, personally, I look at the Palpatine being her grandfather like Leia being Luke's sister, as revealed in Return of the Jedi. I don't really need it, but I'm glad that it's there. So I don't really need Rey to be a Palpatine, but I'm okay with it. And I think what it does is demonstrates that you can reject that and choose who to be. And Rey chooses to be a Skywalker. She makes that choice probably for a lot of reasons, but because that's who she chooses to be. I think what this new trilogy is all been about, at the end of the day, is who we choose to be. Kylo Ren chooses to return to being Ben Solo. Luke Skywalker chooses to save the day. Rey chooses to be a Skywalker and reject her darker side. Finn chooses to turn away from being a stormtrooper. It's all about the choices the characters make. And I'm fine with the fact that Rey is a Palpatine, because she chooses to be somebody else. And yes, Rey is a nobody. Just because she's Palpatine's granddaughter in my mind, does not make her somebody. Now, before we get any further off track, Poe and Finn are better used in this movie than they were in The Last Jedi. Okay, that's it. There's other characters we could talk about, like Claude or Beaumont Kin, but we won't get there. Oh, and Chewie has a nice arc in this story. Or rather, Chewie gets a lot of action in this movie. Well, that sounded really dirty. Let's rephrase that. Chewie was used pretty well. Okay, the third thing is the script. The script is all over the place. Probably because of the way the movie's edited. It's a little bit haphazardly edited. I will say that the pacing is a little too quick, particularly the first half hour, where it's kind of like the beginning of Rogue One. The first half hour, where it's like, what? You know, what, where, who? It's all over the place. So the script itself, the dialogue is pretty good. I'd say it's very all over the place. That may be a result of the editing. But I enjoyed it nonetheless, and I like what it has to say. And what it adds to tie this trilogy together. In my mind, this trilogy is not disjointed, but coherent, I think. And I think the more that I've thought about The Rise of Skywalker, the more I realize how it connects to the other two films. And how it recontextualizes, and in many ways improves the other two films. As they improve this movie. And for me personally, this trilogy ties together very nicely. But as I said, the script's a little wonky, as the editing and pacing are a little bit crazy too. And the script is all over the place, but I like it. The conveniences are really to be blamed on the script. But as I said, we're not going to get into that. Every movie has too many conveniences. Okay. That's the third point. Number 4, the themes. What are the themes this movie brings up? Well, like I said, themes of who we choose to be. Themes of rejecting our darker instincts. Themes of you're never alone. What is it Zori says? The First Order wins by making us think we're alone. By the way, Zori and Jonah, great characters. And General Pride, great characters. Beaumont Kin, played by Dominic Monaghan. The guy who played Merry in Lord of the Rings. He's a bit of a Captain Obvious. But whatever, I like that he's in the movie. Themes of family. Themes of giving of yourself. Kylo Ren, or should I say Ben Solo, having returned to the light and finding a dead Rey after her defeat of the Emperor. Gives of himself to save her life. A selfless act of compassion that he could only do because he turned back to the light. Rey says, with the Force healing, when she heals the snake, which I really like, by the way, and heals Kylo. And also, that's a carryover. That's a bit of connective tissue with the Mandalorian. When Baby Yoda heals Greek Karga. The concept of force healing. I like how that foreshadowed. Because where I said, you bleed some of your life energy into the other creature. So if you're going to bring somebody back to life, you're going to have to give up your whole self. Your whole self. You're going to have to give up your life. Which Kylo does in a selfless action. Now somebody said, you mean the Emperor's been searching for the secrets to immortality and he doesn't know how to do that? Well, it's not something that somebody like Palpatine can comprehend. This is an act of compassion. An act of the light. Which Kylo does. So there are a lot of great themes of selflessness, family, choice, legacy. Rey leaves or lays the past to rest. Not killing the past, which is not, by the way, is not the theme of The Last Jedi. The theme is learning from the past. And also not letting the past define you. Rey lays the Skywalker legacy to rest. Near the Lars homestead on Tatooine. And takes up the mantle of Skywalker, but lays the legacy of Luke and Leia to rest. Like I said, the lightsabers symbolize the legacy. They symbolize many things. So there are so many wonderful themes in The Rise of Skywalker. The theme of together we're stronger than men. It reminds me of the Bible. I don't remember which story particularly. They that be with us are more than they that be with them. The rebels are people willing to fight together to defeat the Empire. An empire that is impersonal, mechanized, erasing identity, being destroyed by a ragtag group of rebels who embrace diversity, embrace differences, embrace that together as people, they're stronger than any empire. Great themes. Number 5, music. John Williams outdoes himself in this movie. As soon as I got home, I bought the Rise of Skywalker soundtrack. After I saw it the first time. And I listened to it on a daily basis. There's a piece in it called The Rise of Skywalker, which is kind of the triumphant music played during any heroic moment in The Rise of Skywalker. It is absolutely beautiful. Furthermore, the use of familiar pieces is great, as well as the new pieces. Yet again, more Rey's theme, which I always love hearing. Kylo Ren's theme, which is softened after he turned to the light. Now, maybe I'm crazy, but for some reason, in the music motif called The Rise of Skywalker, to me it sounds like what would happen if you put Kylo Ren and Rey's themes together. But a lighter version of Kylo Ren's theme which we might call the Ben Solo theme. Absolutely beautiful music. The music moved me in so many ways. I wept so hard during the first screening time I saw it. I was so moved by the movie and the music. The music is so brilliant, and I hope that yet again John Williams gets nominated for an Oscar for Best Original Score. The Oscar nominations, by the way, are next Monday, the 13th. And maybe, just maybe, he might win. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Music elevates the movie, and this is some of the best Star Wars music. It's probably the best, I think, score of the new trilogy. And maybe since Attack of the Clones. Which, yes, had a beautiful score, even though the movie's kind of lacking in some other areas. But the Rise of Skywalker score, I think, is the best John Williams has done in a long time. And he's done amazing work. And the final thing, spectacle. Well, let me bring up Leia just one more time. Visually, there were a couple of moments where it didn't work. But they were trying something very risky. Using footage they had already filmed years ago. And trying to fit it into this one. But yet again, the visual effects are marvelous. Though the scene between Leia and Luke, when they're younger and practicing their lightsaber fight, Luke looks pretty convincing. Leia doesn't. In that CGI de-aging thing. And no, I'm not really a fan of that. Visually great, a great use of practical effects and CGI effects. Great sets, great costumes, great makeup, great creature effects, great sound, as always. Visually just a treat. It's a very good looking movie. Very good looking. Great use of color, great use of light. Really marvelous looking thing. Now, this podcast has gone much longer than I intended. So I just want to close by saying, I love this movie. I believe it fits very well with the other two in this trilogy. Luke catching the lightsaber when Rey tries to get rid of it is the completion of Luke's story arc. I love that he mimicked Yoda by raising the X-Wing out. And that Yoda's theme was playing while he did it. I love that. Red 5, they called it. Luke, I guess, was always Red 5. Some have interpreted that scene. Well, you know what? I'm not going to talk about what others say about this movie. I'm just going to say what I say. When Luke catches the lightsaber, Luke's Force Ghost, by the way, yet again showing their interaction with the world. That is the fulfillment of Luke's story arc. He tossed the lightsaber away in The Last Jedi. Now he catches it because he learns. You don't run away from what you need to do. as Rey was wanting to do. Burn down Kylo's TIE fighter so she could stay on Octo and hide out after learning who she was related to. But Luke had learned through the course of The Last Jedi not to do that, not to reject what needs to be done, and to learn from failure and not run away to hide. That's the last point I wanted to discuss. There is so much that we could say, but I love this movie. My name is Brendan Murray, that noise you hear is my ventilator. And thank you for tuning in to Page Turners They Were Not, my Star Wars podcast. May the Force be with you.